Hello guys and welcome to this special edition video. This is my first podcast that I'm ever doing and I'm already so excited for you to see the content. I did a collaboration with the beautiful Tori from Holy City Mystics. You can go ahead and check her out. I'm gonna link all of her socials down below so you can definitely follow her. And we did a podcast about how astrology can actually help us dealing with mental issues and the correlation between astrology and psychology. So if you are interested in that topic, then definitely stay tuned, subscribe to both of our channels, and next week we are gonna do something special for her channel. So you really want to make sure to subscribe to her channel so that you are notified whenever we are gonna post the second video. But definitely enjoy it. If you would like for me to do more of those types of videos, then definitely let me know in the comments down below and I will make sure to get some people onto my channel so that you have the content that you are seeking. And I find that it's so amazing to see astrology and see another points of view from another astrologers and coaches. So definitely let me know if you would like for me to make more of that content, and I will see you in my next video. You stay tuned and enjoy this episode. So hello, welcome to my channel. Today we are gonna talk about psychology and astrology, the correlation. This is our first video together and I'm really excited. So yes, please introduce yourself to my members so that they can know a little bit about you.
Awesome. Hi, I am Tori, and my channel is called Holy City Mystic. And yeah, I love astrology. I'm happy to be here. Anna reached out to me, like a month ago? 2 months ago?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah,
I
something
don't
like that.
even know, but it was really sweet. We hit it right off. We had a couple of conversations, and it was just completely clear we both love astrology, which is always fun to meet people that like that.
Yes, and maybe because I found this really interesting. Once I looked at your channel, the most interesting thing for me was the content that you are actually putting out about astrology. So you go there in a very specific, like you do many different videos, but specifically you're very into Yods, aren't you?
Yes, the finger of God, the Yod in the astrology chart. I had been studying astrology for maybe 8 years when I heard somebody talking about a Yod, and I was like, "What is that?" And then they started describing what it was like to have a Yod when, like, in your natal chart. And I was blown away. I was like, "Wait, I have that. I have that." And so I went to my chart to check if I had one, and I actually have three of them. And so I was just like really blown away. And there was so little information out there that it was really frustrating. And I paid for a few classes. I would ask different astrologers that I was taking other classes from about the odds. And, once I really felt like I had mastered them, I kept going back and checking YouTube to see if there was any new content on Yods, and there wasn't. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll do it.
And you're really doing a wonderful job. So for those of you who want to learn more about that topic, I think you're really the only one who I have heard talking about this topic so extensively, but also your content in general goes in a very applicable direction. So it's not just like theoretical stuff, but you really focus on actually creating content that I found like really, really useful for your daily life. So this is also not something that everyone does because many people just talk about the theoretical side of astrology, and you do such an amazing job. So please, guys, really
Thank you.
check her out, check out the channel because no, you're really, really amazing. Like the content is really great. Like every time you put on a new video, since I started to watch you, it's really, really interesting because you have a completely different view about astrology. It goes really, way beyond what the workbooks are saying. So you give your own like opinion and your own style to it, and I really love it. So go ahead and check out her channel. I'm gonna definitely link you down below the video so that everyone can check out your channel. So yeah, maybe let's move slowly towards the topic of today's video because I really wanted to talk about the correlation between astrology and psychology. And we're gonna maybe start with why I wanted to talk about this topic and why with you specifically, because you have a little bit of a background in psychology. And so maybe you would like to give your perspective, or maybe where you started with psychology and what correlation do you actually see that there is between astrology and psychology?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my formal schooling was in the field of psychology, and then I actually took that and went into the field of social work. So that's kind of my day job, where I work with people on a daily basis, and I use the skills that I had from my degree in psychology to actually help people out in the community. And so, one of the things that I think is just so important in both psychology and astrology is just somebody being seen. Psychology tends to be more of a one size fits all, where it's like, maybe this method will work with them, or maybe this method will work with them, but it really is coming at it from kind of the basis that we're all generally the same. And astrology has just such a more nuanced blueprint where it's like, someone with a moon in Aries is completely different from someone with a moon in Taurus. And then it goes on and on. And so I've really found that it's extremely helpful when I'm looking at just like talking to a client or whatever, it's like I can look at their chart and have a pretty general idea of what will work for them, what won't work for them. In psychology, you kind of have to try something, and if it doesn't work, you have to go to something else. Then if that one doesn't work, then you have to go to something else. But, cognitive behavioral therapy was something that has really worked for me. However, I have a friend she has her doctorate in psychology. She's actually a psychologist, and she hates cognitive behavioral therapy. It never worked for her. And so it's like, you really have to just like, we're so individualized. And without the astrology chart, you really have to ask the person, get a ton of feedback and all that. But with the astrology chart, it's almost like a cheat sheet as to how the person acts on the inside.
Um, that's really, those are really amazing, amazing points. And do you find that those two things, because psychology is more of a like scientific approach, I would say, and astrology is generally more of a spiritual, or that's what most of people think. But do you feel like those two things can actually be combined together, maybe in order to achieve even better results?
Oh, absolutely. And there is a rise in that, I think, across the board, especially with people who are in helping professions where, they might not like dive way in like I did and actually become an astrologer, but just like at least have a very nominal knowledge of astrology going into something. I think that is a tool that a lot of people gaining degrees in psychology now are kind of dipping into just to have in their toolkit.
Do you feel like because uh, I also had experienced psychology on myself because I actually struggled mentally in the past, and what I found was that psychology was describing the the problems that you are having, but it's not necessarily putting in I feel like astrology is just like this amazing tool because it shows you what you're capable of, which is something that I don't feel like we can get out of psychology, because it's like, first of all, you get a diagnosis, and then there aren't, I feel like, many ways that actually help you out of it, and the focus isn't really put so much onto how can you really become better, and what is actually your potential, and maybe even why you have developed those certain psychological issues.
Mhm.
Do you find that the case too? And maybe what's like the biggest difference there between really like the psychological approach and the astrological approach?
So I think both fields, astrology and psychology, would agree that how you perceive your life is actually the life that you're living. So, somebody who might not be able to walk, they might have a wife who has died. They've lived their life. They're on a fixed income now, so they're struggling with poverty and stuff like that. But their grandkids come over every Saturday, and they cook themselves breakfast in the morning, and they have a dog, and they're just like the happiest person in the world. Just feel like they have everything. And then you have another person who might be young, they're 28 years old, they're a millionaire already, and they are struggling with thoughts of suicide just because they have all this pressure on them. And, they're just like really focusing on the aspects of life that are so hard. And so psychology and astrology both kind of agree that it's like what you see, what you choose to focus on is the life that you're living. Like that is the life that you're living. And so I think psychology, there's a lot of, it's almost like exploratory surgery when you go into it, because it's like we're going to lift up every single stone. We're going to talk about your parents. We're going to talk about like all this. And then with astrology, if somebody is like going through a really dark period and they're like, I feel like I'm going crazy. I don't know what's wrong with me. You can look and you can be like, wow, Uranus is crossing over your moon right now. Like you're going to feel like you're going crazy. And then, 6 months later, it's like somebody turned on the lights and like everything's fine. It just passed and everything. And so it's like, it really does feel like that cheat sheet where you can look at the chart, you can look at the transits going around it, and you can just see like, this is going to be over in 4 months. I can handle this for 4 more months, and I'm going to dig deep and learn all the lessons that I'm supposed to learn, and then, go from there. Whereas somebody else, they might, learn the same lessons, but it's a lot more, I feel like it's more of a messier process as they're going through it, which again, some people need. I'm a huge advocate for psychology. Please get yourself a therapist. Like, it's absolutely amazing. However, astrology, the reason why I think astrology is so important is you can actually look at things and it will tell you a general idea of what you're supposed to be learning during this time of hardship.
So I feel like astrology at the end is a little bit more encouraging, and maybe we don't jump into conclusions so quickly about, the psychological issues that you are having. So it's more like, okay, now this is a hard time because of this and this aspect. But it's not jumping into conclusions of like, oh, you've got a depression or something
Mhm.
like that, because I feel like once you identify yourself with a disease or mental illness, it becomes part of your identity, and I feel like subconsciously it's not that beneficial. I only talk from my experience. I didn't have such amazing psychologists once I was going through my hardships, and I like astrology was at the end the tool that actually helped me to get out of lots of stuff.
Mhm.
So I feel like this is maybe a combination of both of those things is a really, could be the best possible tool that we could use, especially if someone is really, really struggling in their
Mhm.
lives. So regarding the mental illnesses, especially, I wanted to go here a little bit deeper. Can astrology help us to actually see, mental disorders and mental issues that somebody would be prone to, or different transits that may indicate a hard time on our psyche?
Yeah. So one of the things that I mean, you touched on this a little bit, but I I think we really get into trouble when we all agree that there is a normal out there, because there really isn't. And so somebody who might have a deficit in one area is going to have a strength in another area. That's just across the board. I believe that. And so, somebody, when somebody is coloring a little bit outside the lines in some kind of mental capacity, a lot of people tend to label. In psychology, we call it pathologizing, where you turn something that's normal, just like a personality trait, into a pathology, or, some like an illness, like something's an illness. So somebody with some really strong Gemini placements might get labeled ADD when they're a kid, or like ADHD or something like that. However, if you have really strong Gemini placements, you have an insane ability to multitask. You're doing everything, you're interested in multiple things, like, you're looking here, you're looking there. And so somebody who's able to really harness that power of duplicity, like being able to do one thing with one hand and one thing with the other hand, that is absolutely amazing and a superpower. However, when you're in second grade in school and you have this superpower and you don't know what to do with it, you could, get labeled ADHD, get put on medication, have to go see a school psychologist, all these things. Likewise with Pisces, they have this propensity for depression and addiction and, all these things where people are like, they're one of the signs that gets hated on. And but their superpower is the ability to hold space for the bittersweetness of life, where it's like that ache when somebody leaves, to like go on an airplane or something, where you're like, I'm so happy for them. They're going off and doing what they should be doing in the world, but I ache for me. That's a happy moment. It's not a sad moment. And Pisces are able to feel moments like that better than anybody else. And so, like, if a Pisces is just crying at a sunset because it's just so beautiful and they're just, really savoring the moment because it's going to be gone in 2 seconds. And that's like a bittersweet moment there. If they are just sitting in that, people are like, dude, why is this person always crying? Like, it's insane. But it's not that they're depressed or they struggle with depression. It's they're able to sink into moments like that better than anybody else. And, somebody with a strong Cancer placement, like a Cancer moon or something like that, people might call them sensitive and, like they don't really have a spine, like they're just, too soft, too sensitive. But they have a greater capacity for empathy than anybody else. They can look at a person and know exactly how they're feeling and jump into that situation and, be that mother bear where they're like coming in being like, I'm going to take care of everything. And so it's like any disorder you have, any deficit you have, you can look in the chart and actually see that it's a superpower in another area. Like, someone with a Cancer moon might not be really good at certain professions, but they're going to be absolutely amazing at other professions. So I think it's just really important to realize, not only are you okay, like we're all in this circle somewhere. You're okay. You're meant to be where you are. But also, how is that deficit or how is that area actually a superpower? Because I think we're just walking around with a ton of them and everybody has this guilt and shame and insecurity, like I'm not like everybody else. And, one thing that I think it's so important to remember is we all have that to some degree. And the people who don't are actually psychopaths. Like that's part of it is having no shame, no self-consciousness or anything like that. Like that's the real illness. And so if you're feeling self-conscious, if you're feeling like you're a little bit different, like yes, sink into those moments where you have like self-acceptance and learn as much about yourself as possible and all those things, but like actually genuinely not caring, that's like that's its own illness. So like it's totally fine to um just to be who you are and like appreciate who you are. And I mean, that's one thing that in my readings, and I'm sure you're the same, is like just bringing to the table exactly who you are, seeing everything that you are, knowing that you are that way on purpose and not trying to change it, not trying to, pull your planets out of Gemini because you just really hate the idea of being scattered and chaotic and like all those things, but like really sinking into that and realizing that that was given to you for a reason.
That's really beautiful how you describe it as a superpower. And this is what I love about astrology, that it's so encouraging because you are able to see that as and view that as something, not a struggle or not a deficit, as you said, but as a superpower that you can harness and use to your advantage. And now I wanted to maybe jump to a little bit of a more funny part for a moment, because I wanted to know your opinion about, stereotypically, um, what placement or what sign rather would you and you was talking about that for a little bit, but what sign would you describe, or what maybe three signs would you describe as the most, prone to having any mental disorders? Obviously, we always have to look at the chart as a whole, but just, to give a general maybe idea, and just make it a little bit more funny, kind of. What three signs would you pick for, being a little bit prone to having mental issues?
So anything in water and anything in earth have that depth. And so, just that depth of consciousness where they're able to, um, like emotions, they feel emotions like very deeply. And so Scorpios are extremely hard on themselves. Virgos are extremely hard on themselves. And I think like Pisces as well. That's another one where
Yeah.
they are, and again, it's that capacity for bittersweet. Like, you're able to feel things on a deeper level, but sometimes you can, there are two fish swimming around. So you can get stuck in that, where it's
Yeah.
not like bringing things from behind the veil to this side of the veil and then like moving things back and forth like it's supposed to be, but more of a like I'm just going in circles and I don't know how to get out of it and just kind of like having that spiraling moment. But anyone with a Virgo moon, I I usually have like a little heart to heart with them before I start any kind of reading where I'm just like, listen, I'm so sorry. This is a moon that is extremely hard on yourselves. You're going to nitpick everything that you're doing. You're going to be, very depressed, very anxious. Like there's just a lot of things that you you notice. I mean, Virgo, like they're all about details. Like it's very natural for them
Yeah.
to notice. Again, superpower. Like we really need that. We need people who are detail oriented. But having your moon there, sometimes it's a little bit too much. And so I talk about this in some of my videos, but um, Virgo is all about process. If you reach across to the other side, you get Pisces. And Pisces is all about finality. And so Pisces can look at something and be like, this is it. That's why Pisces have a really hard time when they go through something challenging, is because they have a propensity to be like, it's never going to be different, because they have that essence of finality to it. And so Virgo, it's all about process, and they're not really looking to the end of it at all. And so if you are a Virgo moon and you just reach into Pisces and be like, what goals am I moving towards? Where did I come from? Like, how many things about myself have I changed over, the past 5 years, 10 years? I don't even know. And like, how much along the way have I learned? How many tools have I gathered? Just like all these things. And then they can really like kind of come out of that, like keeping your head down and just doing the work, detail after detail after detail, and come into more of like a big picture thing. And then I'm a Scorpio, so I can say Scorpios have a really hard time too.
Yeah, but I truly love Scorpios.
Thank you.
They have really, but you guys are, I feel like very good equipped to having a hard time and overcoming those obstacles. Um, I know this wasn't actually the question that I wrote down, but I also wanted to quickly maybe cut on the 12th house
Mm.
and how much does it, in your opinion, or can it indicate, any mental issues and why?
So the 12th house is your psyche. It's kind of the closet of the zodiac. Like we can really see, all the other houses pretty openly. The 12th house, it's kind of covered up where you have a hard time connecting to any planets you have in the 12th house because it's kind of that closet. And if you have your sun in the 12th house, you're not really going to know how other people perceive you. You're going to have almost that disconnection to yourself. And again, these are all propensities. They're not actually indicating, it depends on what you do with it. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
that was one of the moments for me where I was hooked on astrology. I had never had my chart written or anything, or read or anything like that. And I was at a girl's house and she just pulled up my chart and she started telling me this stuff. And then she saw my son in the 12th house and she's like, "You have no idea who you are, do you?" I was blown away. Like I had never been called out like that ever. And I was in the middle of getting a degree in psychology. I was reading about all these different religions and different practices of different cultures and all this stuff. And I felt like that was the moment where I was like, okay, there's something to this because that is, very much, very much me. Like she really did call me out. But if you just look at different planets placed in the 12th house, um, they're going to tell you different things. And like, again, they're not all bad. Um, if you have Mercury in the 12th house, that might be, Mercury is the messenger. And so if you have Mercury in the 12th house, you might be able to have that superpower of being able to speak thoughts clearly so that other people can hear them. And it's kind of one of those things where they're able to call out the elephant in the room really easily because they're able to see things behind the veil, like
Mm.
underneath the surface and stuff like that. So, is that what you were asking? Does that answer your question?
That's that's I have very good answer because it again shows that you also, astrology can tell you how the energy is gonna look, but you choose, because it always has two different sides. You can either pick, the positive vibration of that energy, or you can pick the negative vibration of that energy. And I think those examples that you gave really show that. And now, lastly, for those people who are struggling mentally and having a hard time, how can they use astrology as a tool to help them get out of those hard times and hard moments?
Book a reading. I mean, if I really do believe that, or have a good therapist or somebody with you. I do think if you try to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and kind of dive into astrology head first without training, it can be really scary. Especially planets like Pluto. If a lot of places have like the first half of Pluto, where it's the undoing or the collapse of the tower, but they don't have the second half of Pluto, where you have the revolution, you have the rebirth, like the rising of the phoenix. And
Yeah.
so if you dive into that and you don't really get the whole story, you're reading a blog or you're listening to somebody's video or something like that, and I try to be very careful in my videos to make sure I give the whole story where I'm not like, oh, you have Saturn on your ascendant, I guess you're screwed, like stuff like that. Like it's not the whole story. And so I do think it's important to book a reading with somebody that you trust, somebody who you know isn't going to be like super scary, because every single person has a reason why they're here, has a reason why they're going through what they're going through. They have things to learn from it. They have tools already in their toolkit. They just might not know that they have them. And so, somebody who, again, we're picking on Pisces in this video, but somebody who has Pisces, you know, that deep emotional, like emotionality, I don't even know what word you say, but like that deep emotion that they also have a deep capacity for art. And so it's like if they're feeling that, heartbreak just at the sunset moving on and shifting into night or something like that, they can turn that into art. They can turn it into music. They can write poetry. Like they have all these amazing things that can get them through it. But if a person with a strong Pisces placement starts reading blogs and stuff like that, and they're just like, oh, I guess I'm prone to a depression and addiction, and well, that makes sense because I drink and smoke every single day. It's like all these things. They don't really get the second half of it, where it's that deep ability to turn pain into beauty and joy for other people to witness.
I think that you just really beautifully described why astrology is such an amazing tool, but it really has to be used carefully because there is so much information out there that's not, going in depth. And I also feel like this is why, when you read something online, uh, you know, about Pisces, let's stay with the Pisces. Um, and you read all of that stuff, it's just something, those are just key words, key points for that energy. But having somebody, an astrologer, to read your chart, that person, the ability and the purpose of being an astrologer is, I feel like, more reading those energies more intuitively and, really applying that into a person.
Mm,
And I feel like this is something that you can't, get out of, those all of those free websites where you get a free PDF or your birth chart, because you read through that stuff. I did it many times myself, where I would download a 30 pages analysis of my chart, and I would read that, and I was like, I couldn't even understand half of what of the information that was in there, and I didn't know what to do with that information. So
mm,
that's why I feel like this is really, you know, astrology is such an amazing tool when you use it properly.
mm,
And that's why you also have to be careful and also find somebody who you are vibing with, because every astrologer has a different approach. And I feel like most of the times when you can connect to a video of a person, you kind of get the vibe and then you can go from there.
mm,
But that's why it's so amazing. And I feel like for you especially, it's quite extraordinary, I feel like, because you've got, so much knowledge about psychology and then astrology on top of that. It really gives you, I feel like that's what makes you a really amazing astrologer.
oh, thank you.
Um,
But yeah, like, and
no,
you're absolutely
really.
right. And in my readings, I use both. If I feel like somebody is in an abusive relationship or something like that, I kind of put astrology aside for a second. We have a talk about that. Like, what do you really believe that you deserve? Like what are the things, what are the fears that are keeping you in this relationship that is, might be harmful to you. It might be harmful to the people in your life as well. Um, but one of the things that um, I think is so important, like people writing those blogs, they're trying to get all the information out, but which is absolutely amazing. They're extremely useful. However, when you're meeting with a person one on one, like in a reading setting, that person, so Saturn, for instance, Saturn can be 10 different things. It can be your father, it can be your boss, It can be structure in general. It's like just going through all these things. And so when you see a strong placement of Saturn, maybe it's, conflicted, or there might just be like afflicted, I think is what it's called. There might just be different things going on with Saturn. You can ask the person, like, what are the things that are going on in your life? And the person can be like, well, like I just had to cut ties with my dad for like, various reasons. And that's being really hard, that's been really hard and stuff like that. And so it's like, if you get the printout, it's just giving you everything versus really talking to somebody and talking through something. You get all the nuances and you get that immediate feedback where it's like, okay, it's probably not talking about organizational skills here. They're probably talking about this other aspect of Saturn that is equally as relevant.
No, that's really awesome and so true. And yeah, so I feel like we got through every question I think that we wanted to talk about. So is there anything else that you would like people to know generally or about this topic?
So you are absolutely amazing in your videos with talking about the North Node and like all those things that are super helpful and super relevant. And so, yeah, just like finding an astrologer that you vibe with. I also do a lot of videos kind of mixing psychology and astrology where I talk about like daily applications of, I did one where it's like journaling by your Mercury sign and,
Really amazing, really helpful.
thank you. Thank you.
One
Um,
of my favorite videos
oh,
from you.
wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm kind of that's kind of the direction that I'm headed in because I think I've talked Yods to death at this point. I have every single placement, every single apex there is. Like it's a lot of videos on Yods. I think last time I counted, I have like 45 Yod videos. So
Oh,
I am moving in more of a direction of just practical psychology, like real applications of what, you know, like how you can actually use astrology, not just know, like, okay, I'm an Aries moon, which means, I like to be active or whatever. But it's like, no, like, what does it mean to be an Aries moon? What can you do with that? What can you actually do with that? So, yeah.
so really amazing. And I would say like I got a quick reading for our like when we were talking first, so I really can talk from experience. I you saw few things that I didn't even see in my own chart, and you give really amazing advice. So for everyone who would like somebody who applies psychology and astrology and gives you really tips that you can actually use and that can tell you how to work with your chart, definitely check out Tori and her readings because she's really amazing. So if you don't have anything to add, I feel like we have exhausted the topic. I don't want it to make it too long. Um, so yes, thank you so much for coming to yeah, for doing this with me and for sharing your amazing knowledge. Again, I'm gonna link all of your socials down below for everyone who would like to book a reading with you or subscribe to your YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you for your time. And yeah,
Thank you so
that's
much.
gonna be it.